What's up, everybody? I'm Dr. Weber, and today is all about breathing. We're going to talk about how we breathe, when we breathe, and some exercises for breathing to increase our lung capacity, our oxygen intake, also to be able to tolerate CO2. So importances of breathing are that we obviously get oxygen into our lungs. The heart carries deoxygenated blood to the lungs. The lungs saturate those arteries so that we can get that blood distributed with oxygen to the rest of its members of the body. So pushing the heart blood out of the aorta and out into the upper body and lower body, and then it goes back to the heart, the deoxygenated blood through the veins, and then it goes back to the lungs to get more oxygen. And this happens 20,000 times we breathe a day, and our heart beats, I think, 10,000 beats per day. I'm not even sure, but a lot. You might have to Google that one for me. So we're going to talk about breathing. We're going to talk about how we breathe. We're going to first start with, obviously, where we start to breathe, which is our facial structure. So we're going to go ahead and draw the head here. We have the nose, we have the eyes, we have the mouth. Okay, we have a nice human here with a neck, some shoulders, some arms. Okay, and this person has a couple legs and some hands. All right, so when we breathe, we typically want to breathe through the nostrils. The reason why we don't want to breathe through the mouth is because our mouth needs to stay clean, and the best way to keep our mouth clean is to keep our mouth shut. And when we breathe through the nose, there is what we call a sinus cavity, which takes that air, circulates it, and filtrates it, warms it, humidifies it, cleans it, disinfects it. And these are all great things for the body, because what that does is it cleans the air. We have clean, crisp, cool, calm, collected air. What we have in return is better oxygen absorption. Okay, so if we are breathing through our mouth, we tend to breathe shallowly in through the chest, and that typically doesn't allow us to totally take a full inhale and to allow our diaphragm to push everything down. If that doesn't happen, our diaphragm will stop moving and we'll keep everything up a little bit higher. We'll get constricted in the upper neck and shoulder area. We might have neck or shoulder pain. Those types of things can occur just from poor breathing mechanics. Okay, and then also if we're sitting all day with poor breathing mechanics, that's going to affect our posture. Our posture is going to affect our stability. Stability is going to affect our mobility. Mobility is going to affect your strength, and so forth. Okay, so it's really important to breathe and to breathe efficiently. So we want to breathe through the nose. The air travels down the windpipe, okay, into two bags, okay, which are called our lungs. We have 3 lobes on our right side, and we have 2 lobes on our left side. Why? Why is our right side a little bit bigger than our left side? Well, because our heart is kind of in the way here, okay, and that kind of pushes our lungs, and what it does is it flattens our diaphragm a little bit more on that side. So on our right side, we have a diaphragm that is a little bit rounder, and when we inhale, the diaphragm flattens and moves down, and when we exhale, the diaphragm goes back to that shape and moves up. And so what we have is we're pushing our digestion or our intestines down and forward. Okay, we're getting everything out of the way so that we can get more air into our lungs. Okay, so the objective is to get air into the lungs, but what happens is everything gets pushed outward, forward, outward, and backward in 360 degrees when we inhale, because the diaphragm is moving down, okay, and is pushing everything all around in 360 degrees. And that's essential for us to get air into the lungs. So when we put pressure downward, we get more air into our lungs, and so forth. So we also have to think that we have a rib cage around our lungs, which protect our lungs, and in between the rib cage, we have our intercostal muscles, which help us breathe mechanically. And then we have our transverse abdominis, which runs across our abs. And then we have our uh, intra-obliques and our external obliques, which run together in a diagonal fashion. And then we have our rectus abdominis, or our six-pack. Okay? And then we have what we call our obliques, but they're what we call our internal and external obliques, which run diagonally. And then behind that space, we have our QL on the back side, and our rectus spinae, which runs all the way up the spine. Okay, and then we also have what else we got in there? Oh, we have our iliopsoas, our big psoas muscle, our hip flexors, which run right here at the lower portion of the spine and connect into the femurs. Okay, those help us flex our knees. And a lot of times, if we're flexed like this a lot and we're breathing wrong, that can also affect our posture as well and our breathing mechanics. So we have our glute medius and max, our glutes, our big quads here, and then you have obviously your knees and your shins here. But mainly when we think about breathing, we want to think about creating this 360 degrees of pressure in our abdominal wall. And then we should feel our rib cage also move, okay, because that's going to expand outward and backward. And we want to feel that expansion in our posterior or in our back side, probably more than you're currently doing now. So a lot of emphasis in PRI is breathing into the back of the spine or the rib cage in that area, because we tend not to get it, especially because we seem to be asymmetrical from our liver being on our right side, not being on our left side. We have our diaphragm, which is flatter on the left side. We have two more lobes on the right with our lungs. So we have a lot of stuff going on here. So when it comes to breathing, we inhale through the nose, goes through the lungs take it to the heart distributes it to the body. Okay, and so we're getting this blood supply to all of our body and heart through just breathing. Okay, the reason why breathing through the sinus is so important is because it increases NO2, okay, which is nitric oxide, helps you feel good. It's like laughing gas. It's also means a way to vasodilate the artery walls to give you a little bit more room, support more arterial expansion. It gives you more oxygen supply. Okay, we talked about it being cleaning the air, humidifying the air, disinfecting the air. Those are all great things. Okay, that's why we want to breathe through the nose. Okay, when we shut our mouth to breathe, we want to make sure our tongue is behind the back of our teeth, resting on the top of the palate, almost like it's clamped. We don't have to shut it clamped tight, but nice and gently. It can be more clamped sometimes more than others, but just depending on the situation. And just try to generally keep your mouth shut unless you're talking or eating. All right. And so those are great things too. And drinking water and stuff like that is also important for your mouth. But it's really important for your nostrils to be open and breathing, because if you don't have that ability, you'll also have more likelihood of having sleep apnea or bad sleep, because if you're not breathing through the nose and your mouth breathing, your sympathetic state is going to be increased. Okay, and so your sympathetic state is increased when you shallow breathe in through the chest only, and you don't use the core. And we're going to talk about how to use this core. We want to think of it as a pillar. Okay, so you have a pillar sitting on top of a pillar here, and you can support these pillars in a stack position. Okay, this is what we call the stack. Okay, check out Zach Couples on YouTube to learn more about the stack. Okay, and so we don't want to mess up the stack with that anterior pelvic tilt or too much posterior pelvic tilt. We want to get right in the middle, and once we get into this position, that's the best way to breathe. So whether you're doing that on your back and your knees at 90 degrees, or you're breathing in the hook lying position, or whether you're doing it in the hands and knees position, or whether you're doing it in a squat position. We want to always maintain that stack because it's going to give us the optimal breathing mechanics to breathe appropriately to get the most efficient amount of optimal stability, which is important for our pelvo-lumbic hip complex, okay, and also your pelvic floor muscles, your diaphragm at the top, the multifidus in the back, and then you have your transverse abdominis, intra-abdominal obliques, and you have your abdominal wall. And all that is important because it helps you from shifting into an anterior pelvic tilt. So if you have a strong core, you have a good hip coordination with the pelvis and the ribs and the diaphragm, which gives you the most intra-abdominal pressure, which gives you the most strength and capacity. Whereas if you're stuck in these positions or sway back, that can affect your breathing mechanics, decrease your stability output and strength over the long term. So when we're breathing, focus on inhaling through the nose, clamp that mouth shut, exhale out through the nose. I like to exhale through the nose as well, because if we exhale through the mouth, what we tend to do is maybe breathe back through the mouth. And so if we focus on only breathing through the nose, we'll limit the time we may spend inhaling through the mouth. Now, if we are exercising, I will probably exhale through the mouth with pursed lips or with a very shallow exhale like that. Okay, so whether you're trying to increase expansion or increase pressure, you might want to exhale a little bit harder. So if you feel like you're an opened up infrasternal angle, more Zach Couples can tell you about that. But if you have a wider rib cage, you may tend to need to exhale a little bit harder. If you have a narrow rib cage, you may need to open it up by exhaling a little bit slower. Okay, so those are important techniques. All right, so what's some exercises we can perform? First one we just call is just focused breathing. So focused breathing is really just focus on your breathing. Okay, inhale and exhale through the nose. I just want you to focus on that for like 2 to 5 minutes. Okay, next we can go into longer exhales, and that's just you're going to take an inhale through the nose for 4, and then you're going to exhale out for 8 seconds. That's a good beginner level. Okay, sometimes we tend to inhale, hold, exhale, but for this one we're just going to inhale for 8, or inhale for 4, and then exhale for 8. Okay, so these you can do if you want through the mouth or through the nose. It's up to you. Many breathing exercises, people inhale through the nose and exhale out through the mouth just to get everything out. Okay, so 3, you can try box breathing. What that is just an inhale for 4, hold for 4, and exhale for 4, another hold for 4, and then another inhale. So inhale, hold, exhale, hold. So inhale for 4, hold, exhale for 4, hold, and then inhale again. Okay, that is more advanced. You might want to try to be relaxed before you do that. Otherwise, you might feel like you're hyperventilating or you're not able to hold your breath. You can expand the box. Okay, you can see how many boxes you can get, okay, in a day, and just try to increase your box amount. That'll help you increase your breathing mechanics. You can do long holds. So you can inhale, hold, as long as you're not near water or driving, and then you can exhale as long as you can, okay? There's also what we call the CO2 capacity test. CO2 capacity test. And you have your Bolt score. Those are 2 ways of seeing how well you're able to tolerate CO2. So check out CO2 capacity on Google or YouTube, and check out Bolt score on YouTube or Google if you want to see what your score is. I believe the Bolt score, all you do is you inhale and you hold it, and as long as you can hold your breath without wanting carbon dioxide, you want to count that amount, and then there's a chart. And then for the CO2 capacity, I believe it's how long you can exhale for. Okay, so those are 2 ways you can find out how good your breathing is currently. okay, and see what level you're at before you begin these exercises. That way, it'll give you a good assessment. All right, other than that, try to focus again, expanding the belly, the rib cage, the back of the ribs, the actual tissues in the sides and the back when you inhale, and then try to exhale fully everything out in as slow as you can. Your inhales should be pretty quiet. Shouldn't be like sniffing or a burning sensation or tension sensation, because that's just going to restrict airflow. So you're not going to get as much air in doing that. So it has to be quieter. It's going to help with the expansion of the bronchial tubes, the airways, because if you go harder, you're going to restrict it. So inhale slow, shouldn't hear yourself, and then exhale as long as you can. And then if you can, hold your breath between your inhales and exhales, so that you're not breathing too fast at the same time. So I like to inhale, hold, exhale, hold, just kind of like similar to box breathing, but sometimes I make the edges of the box obviously different sizes. Box breathing is a little bit more specific with the 4-4-4 approach, but you can create your own boxes, obviously. You can have a lot of fun with this. Breathing is really important, obviously, because it's going to decrease your stress. It's going to decrease your anxiety. It's going to decrease your heart rate. It's going to decrease your resting heart rate, your active heart rate, your recovery heart rate. It's also going to help you with sleep, which we know sleep can be your number one health quality. And we also know that health quality and sleep quality also relate to your circadian rhythm, your sleeping patterns, your exercise, your strength, your tenacity, your stress levels, your ability, your capabilities. All these things are important for sleep, because if you don't get sleep, we all know you're nothing without sleep. We all know this. No one can go without sleep without feeling the effects. Also, number 2, hydration, making sure that you're getting half your body weight in ounces. If you're not currently getting that, try to work up to that. So maybe add in a cup of a day until you get to that level. All right, so those are my health tips and my breathing tips. Thank you for watching.